How's it going, guys? It's Mr. Lone Wolf, and today I'm going to go and give this thing a review, the Cat CT681. I believe it came kind of joint second with the little Calm Sentinel, so yeah, we'll put it through its paces and see how it goes. So first thing is the engine. I've gone for this one, the SI8V blah 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 blah. The bottom one is S, the one I've gone for is S+, the one above it is S+ as well, but it looks like the fuel's a little bit worse. Yeah, gearbox I'm going for the higher range. There is no suspension. We'll get into the suspension in a sec as well, because it's a bit different to most of the others. Probably not necessarily in a good way overall. Tyre-wise, sadly, being the American trucks, it never gives you the option of the muds. So, not only that, but yeah, the chained version you get. I believe they're a chained version of the all-terrain, so I'm going to leave them on for the sake of fairness, because I've done pretty much all the other tests with chained. Maybe in certain situations you might be better off with the off-roads. Yeah, the winch I've gone for the most powerful. The advanced, it's got engageable diff locks, which is better than nothing, I suppose. The snorkel doesn't quite go to the roof, but that won't be too much of an issue. All-wheel drive, engageable, and they've actually modelled in like the front axle actually changes. Add-ons wise, I think you can add just about everything, except you can't have the seismic vibrator thing or the metal detector or anything like that. But you got the saddle high and the saddle low. It's funny because they're the same identical thing, whichever one you choose, and yet if you've got like the saddle high on, it won't let you put saddle low stuff on, etc. Yeah, all this stuff. I mean, sun visor, I went for the colour coded one. This you can have like LED lights or the sort of more simple round fog lights. Bumper wise, this one actually sits very flush, and all the rest of it is probably technically the best one to go for. That one clearly sticks out a lot more and goes a bit lower, so does that one. That one though, it sticks out a little bit more than the stock one, like the top one, but overall I've gone for it because it's not that bad, and I quite like the fact that it's got sort of those bull bars and a couple of extra little lights on the thing, even though, like I say, it probably doesn't really make any difference. You are probably technically best going for the other one. All this, I mean, little parking lights and horns and whatever, sort of customise as you see fit. Exhaust wise, I actually went for this one originally because it points it out to the side more, which was good, but I'll get to why I change it for the other one in the end. Like I believe the stock one, alloys again, it's like the same usual choice. I've gone for the quite shiny chrome ones. All the usual colours, looks pretty cool though, in black, grey and white. Yeah, these custom ones, you've got that one, which I think it comes with. The red one looks pretty cool. I'm going with that just because it reminds me most of cat colours. That blue's quite a nice blue, and that green. They don't look as like old faded blue and green as some of the other truck. Usually the Russians have like a very old faded look to them. Yeah, having a look at it, I mean overall it looks like pretty cool, good looking truck. Like I said, that liftable axle thing is going to be the main theme of this truck in a way, sort of sadly for the most part. It's quite, say, cool that it's a feature or whatever, but it's kind of in the actual scheme of things with the game, it's just more of a hindrance than anything else. Interior looks pretty new and modern. The mirror, it's kind of split them where you've got two lots of mirrors. I don't really like that, but I can see just fine out the back anyway. No rear view mirror, even though I've got a big rear window. Yeah, that, they need to like adjust the mirror in. I couldn't see my tyres or anything, but again, stick my head out. The exhaust is on the other side of the truck, which is quite nice. The horns, a little bit squeaky in that, but it seems like a good bit of oomph to it, so it'll do. Feel like I'm sat very far forward as it is. Revs wise, I'll need to sort of move forward to have a look. It revs up to 2.5, and one of the rare trucks where it actually revs all the way according to the rev counter. This truck only goes to 2.5. It's pretty nippy as well. It's especially, again, I'd prefer choosing the high range. It's got a good bit of speed to it going though. Go to the trailer store again. Like I said, it's funny how the saddle high and the saddle low are both like look identical, but it'll make you specifically choose each one, which is just one of those things. A little bit of an oversight, nothing special. It's annoying you can't attach that trailer unless you've got the log front. I get it for the logs, but if you want to recover that trailer, you have to winch it. Yeah, you can see how low that trailer sits into the floor. That was just the Cat CT680. They look pretty similar. I mean, obviously this thing's got like a longer chassis. With the suspension, the front you can see is like leaf springs. Springs. This is the Cat CT681, but the back is what I've never heard it called this before. Somebody said it's like rocker arm suspension, which sort of does make sense. There's like one solid beam, so as you push one set of tyres, say, up, it forces the other set down. It's exactly the same as the Cat CT681. It looks like I've smashed it up a bit there. I was rallying it around before I did this, but I'll explain later. There's only about one area where it kind of helps a little bit, but for the most part it's probably a little bit of a hindrance. I broke the suspension on the yellow one, so you can see the front's sitting lower because that acts like normal suspension, but the rear, they're both level. If anything, the back end was like tipped up a bit more because it's levered the front down, but yeah, so there's no give in the suspension, so to speak. Like, again, if you push one tyre up, it has to push the other axle down, and certain situations, like, there's nowhere for the axle to go down, so in other words, it's going to have to lift the whole truck up instead of having suspension. Through here, I won't specifically blame this truck. I mean, there's plenty of power and everything. It, I'm sure, could have stayed in high range. It would have just wheel span a lot. It's mostly due to the tyres, really. Most of the trucks, if not all of them, that are given these kind of tyres and the dual rear axles and all the rest of it are like the dual tyres. Yeah, they're the same thing, really. They just kind of bleed a lot of power through wheel spin going through there. But like I said, at least it has got the diff locks and everything, which it's still, I mean, overall, I'd mostly, it's definitely like in the realm of it's a highway truck that's had a few things added that means it can barely scrape by on some off-roading. But yeah, it's really ain't going to be the truck you'd choose if you had the option for some serious off-roading. Power-wise, again, though, motored up that hill, no trouble. Going for a tree test, I hit this first one, it seemed to lose a lot of its sort of speed and momentum pretty quick there. And I'd already done a little bit of a tree test, so I kind of reversed up. I'll put it in high this time, because that kind of helps maintain a little bit more of your speed. As long as there's a little gap between the trees, so you've got enough time to like rebuild your inertia, I suppose. But yeah, here it is at the farm knocking these down, and what's pretty cool is mostly it took one engine damage on that 7th tree or whatever, but yeah, that's pretty good. It like rarely does damage to the engine when you hit a tree, and if it does, it was like, yeah, one damage, not like 50, and it's half deleted the engine. Going round here, kind of had a feeling to be the same. Yeah, just slips really, so low range, diffs on, and that axle again, you can start to see it's sometimes obviously it's following in the grooves that your front axle makes, so it's not the end of the world, but there's plenty of situations where, yeah, the terrain doesn't deform out the way or whatever, so those axles are just going to become a bit of an issue. So there's loads of bikes going past at the minute, every few minutes. They keep coming past again and again. Yeah, eventually I was able, I think, to get it back into the high range after going through that bit, so pretty standard for all that sort of stuff. Well, probably obviously on the lower end, the stuff like the Dolphin and all that goes through a lot better. So you can see with hitting the rock test, like, the suspension didn't take crazy amounts of damage, but it's one of those suspensions that you'll be driving along on a perfectly flat road and it'll just suddenly go bang and take a load of damage, and it's like, I don't really know why, but you can kind of see the wheels jiggling as one axle kind of goes up, the other one has to go down, and vice versa. But because there isn't actually much play in terms of suspension travel, when I'm hitting these rocks, you can see it's just kind of lifting the whole back end up, really. And they're just kind of bouncing over the top rather than like each individual wheel sort of soaking up with some suspension travel. It's making the whole chassis of the truck lift. And yeah, going around here, I already knew this thing's, when you put it in auto and that, it's got a bit of speed to it. So we're going for the anti-terrorist barricade. Getting a bit squirrely. Nailed that, thankfully. You can see from my suspensions, probably got about 1 health left, but it's pretty handy. At least it didn't collapse, so I could just do this test without bringing anything to fix it. And yeah, I mean, long story short, it's really not liking this mud at all. I know that section there is pretty bloody slow for all trucks regardless, but this one definitely isn't keen on the mud. I did sort of low range diffs on is the best. Auto, it was just wheel spinning more. High range, it bled all its speed and just sat there. This little current going to the side, it's pulling the nose around a bit, not crazy amounts. The back end didn't seem as bad, it's just that seems pretty planted. I mean, there's certain situations where, because there isn't any play in the suspension, it's like the whole rear of the truck is just kind of slammed on the floor, and there's not really, yeah, it's like there's no suspension to take away the weight that's slammed on the floor. There's a few situations that can help, but mostly, like I said, the lack of suspension can be more of an issue. Going through that snow, not great, but it did it alright, better than some things. So after you go over the barrier there, I mean, it bit its way up the front tyres, which are 47 inch, a little on the small side, not as bad as, I believe that, was it the Brigadier? Or one of them had 46 inch or something, it was a bit small. But yeah, I hit the fuel tanks, so Obviously right now it's irrelevant. It looks like the tyres and in general aren't tall enough to touch the other side like once I've gone over that barrier. So what I figured, I'd just like winch myself off with that and try if I can sort of go over the barrier diagonally. See if I can just at least get one fuel tank kind of partly over so I sit high enough. Which it worked pretty nicely there, but then couldn't really go forward. But as you'll see now, as I pull, I'm trying not to use the winch much, I was just getting me sort of to there. Not only this axle is in the way a bit, but there's like a little metal frame under the truck that sort of comes with that liftable axle. You can sort of see it there. That's what was catching on the barrier before it even got a chance to get blocked by that, yeah, the liftable axle. So overall, not too great there. And I was going to cut this little bit out, but it kind of illustrates it perfectly. As I was going over this hill, this rock, that's it. Pretty much the whole weight of the truck is now sat on that liftable axle, and as you can see, both my rear axles are not touching. Obviously the front's sticking out because it's not weighted forward enough that it'll tip the nose down yet. I was just messing around, kind of changing the suspension mode, but yeah, that is what the issue is going to be with this truck. Like, they've added something that, as I said, in real life, I get that axle, you drop it down to help spread the weight on the truck if you've got a heavy trailer and all the rest of it. That doesn't matter in this game. I could put a 1,000,000-ton trailer on these trucks and it'll just be a trailer. Well, it might be a pain hauling it up a hill, but you know what I mean. It's not going to break the truck or squash the truck. It's not going to burst the tyres because the weight's too heavy. So, as far as in this game world, it's like that axle has zero benefits and everything is like, at best it's going to not be an inconvenience. At worst, it's going to be a massive inconvenience. Going over the snow is a little slow there, but again, like, it's not too bad. It did creep along kind of fast enough, probably not particularly worse than a lot of the sort of middle of the road kind of trucks. And this section, you could already see there was some tyre marks there. I tried getting up the first time, that axle got in the way. Lined it up a bit, it looked like it was about to do it again, but then as I was driving, it sort of slid the back end round over to the left. And I think the middle axle kind of slipped in a little groove, and it just enough for the rear axles to actually touch and get me up there. Nose test again, nose is pretty fine, the bumper doesn't really get in the way. Going for the jumping, the wall jumping, I do like this, and to be fair, it did it pretty well. I thought, if anything, obviously that axle again is going to get in the way. If that hit the wall, there's no way I can really get over it. The reason I came back, and I wanted to mention something about the exhaust, is, yeah, I originally had that exhaust that stuck out, I think it was called outrolled, where it pointed out to the side quite a lot. But as I was coming through here and doing the sort of the tree test, I theoretically could get through the trees, but it was the exhaust that's on the right as we're looking at it now, but when I spin the camera around it's going to be on the left. Yeah, it was catching on either the branches or the actual main tree itself about now. And basically this, I believe, is the stock exhaust, kind of, even though it doesn't point sideways, the truck isn't that smoky, so it sort of doesn't really matter. But yeah, the exhaust is a bit more tucked in with the truck. It also caught that other tree as I came out, so it was twice it got me, hence why I went back, jumped the wall a second time, and yeah, came back with a bit of a better exhaust. Turning test next with a cargo. Sadly, not very good. I'd even say I'd give it a little bit of a break. I actually did this. I hit that big round coil thing, and I reversed and lined it all up again, because normally I just floor it and start turning. This time I kind of blipped the throttle a bit as I was turning, just to, the slower you go, you kind of get a bit of a better, tighter turning circle. And just by the skin of its teeth, it near enough scuffed all those garage doors on the way round. Yeah, so definitely like a bit worse really than a massive chunk of the trucks in this game. The only things probably that turn worse than this is like the twin steer. I can't even remember any other. There's not many though. The collobs probably, but yeah, like as far as this size truck, that's pretty bad. It mows along nicely again on roads. It's clearly like more of a highway truck. And going through here, the tyres are not helping, but there's certainly other trucks. The Cat CT681 would probably, sorry, the CT680 would probably fare a bit better here, because it hasn't got that axle in the way. And long story short, I'm going to edit some out, but yeah, it just kept getting stuck. I wasn't moving anywhere, even low range diffs on. So in the end I had the winch on me. I was trying to like hoover myself forward and let off the winch again, just to, there's little bits like now where the truck was kind of making it under its own steam, albeit very slowly. But yeah, just loads of places like that where it just stops again. the whole truck itself in general sits very low. Again, because there's no suspension travel in that rear suspension, there's obviously the whole chassis of the truck hasn't really been lifted in the first place to accommodate suspension, so it sits very low all underneath the truck really, particularly at the back, but the front isn't great. I mean, turning circle wide around here, it's just about enough. You can see me going a little wide considering how early I turned, and I had quite a nice line approach in the corner really. And it's possibly like little things like this. I actually put it in high here, and it's just about able to tick along in high. Because there is no suspension in the rear, it can't bleed its power away with suspension travel, if that makes sense. As I said, the whole back is just slammed and that's it. That's slammed into the floor, and there's nowhere for it to go, so there's a very few situations where it possibly helps a little bit. But I don't know, a Voron AE, Voron Grad, etc. would get up into high down there without that little trick. That's just because they're better trucks with better wheels and proper suspension and enough power and all the rest of it. Yeah, my trailer yard's getting pretty full, I have to say. Going through there, it sort of made it through that bit. Again, I mean, solid ground. It's terrain that doesn't give is where this suspension probably gets a little bit of a bonus. It motored through that water pretty well, I can't complain there, it was quite nice. Squeeze through this gap, that's what she said. Yeah, makes it through there, but again, it's not really a particularly big truck, so I'm never worried about that. Bit of a slow drive along there. Interior view, like I said, you feel like you sat quite high up and fairly far forward, so that little tree kind of just above my steering wheel now, yeah, you barely, like, the bonnet never even really touches the bottom of that until now when I'm pretty much next to it. So view, first person view wise, yeah, but not bad. You definitely, the bonnet is never really an issue. On a quick little look around, again, views all around are pretty good. At least you've got the rear window. There's certain trucks, like, is it the... It might be the Voron Grad. I think the Voron D as well, actually. Maybe even the Voron E. They've not got a rear window. For me, it doesn't really bother me, to be honest. It's rare that I'm in first person view. I'd certainly spend the vast majority of my time in this view. Going along it, I went too far over to the left there, so I was like, right, we're going to give it another go. But look at the back, see where I bumped that rock and it's like, it resisted me for a minute. Again, because that rear tyre, well, if that levered up, it was trying to push the second axle down, but that second axle had nowhere to go. So again, instead of suspension travel, being able to move the wheel up and I pop up that rock quite easily, I had to lift the whole rear of the truck to get up that rock, because there was nowhere else for the tyres, or yeah, even between them, there was nowhere for them to go. Cutting through here, I mean, not too bad. I've certainly seen worse trucks go through here, and considering how low this thing does sit, yeah, pretty... Oh, we'll give it a pass on that. That's not too bad. I mean, again, like power-wise, there's plenty of that there. Certainly, if they would just let us have the mud version of, well, yeah, muds, like single wheels at the back and all the rest of it, it'd be quite cool to see what some of these American trucks can do, because, yeah, there's no reason why, in real life, we wouldn't be able to put the same muds on these trucks. Even if the stud pattern was different, it's all solvable. Well, yeah, just take the rubber off the alloy and stick it on an American alloy then. It's got the same stud pattern and everything. Yeah, going over that rock bridge, I actually thought it did pretty well considering the lack of suspension, but the front has, and even though they're only 47-inch wheels, it never caught its nose or anything like that. It actually got over there, and I was at least able to keep enough speed going that the yeah, that liftable axle didn't really get in the way. I think I edited it exactly 2 minutes out there to go from where I was to here, so it was quite a long, slow, painful drive. It doesn't like snow that much. It was about this slow the whole way there. And I mean, I think just about every truck has kind of made this, but obviously some make it a lot more comfortably than others. This one, it never really at risk of tipping or anything like that, but just, yeah, slow. The mud test, that's how confident I was it wasn't going to make it. You can see Dolphin and Loaf in the background. Sort of got them there ready. And now I was already surprised that it made it this far. I mean, again, to a degree, that axle is kind of following the grooves that my front tyres are making, but that's not always the case. Well, they're obviously contacting a bit, you can see them slowly rotating. However, you'll start to see my back end sort of skid out to the left, really. And I've noticed this since this last phase update. Somebody, or probably a couple of people by now, said it in the comments. I now let off. Look, my truck's sliding to the sideways, to the side, even though I'm obviously not accelerating or anything like that. I don't know. It's never really done it before until the Phase 4 update. It doesn't always happen often, and it's not the worst thing in the world or anything. In fact, in this situation, it might be helping me, because again, I was like, bloody hell, I'm surprised it got this far, but I let off. I'm still moving magically forward, like slowly, but I'm definitely moving. I even was trying to stick a winch there to the tree to sort of stop me, but yeah, it wasn't. So it did get through the mud, but I seem to have some like invisible boost kind of helping me, so I don't really know how much I can attribute to the truck itself versus that little bug. See there, it looked like it was thinking about tipping, but it didn't, and there's a few trucks that would go, like the Royal and the ANK, for example, would definitely go there. When we just started this snow test, I already edited out, I beached, same thing on the first little hill, that's why stick it in high. The nice thing is, it goes into high very easily without stalling, and that's what I had to keep doing on like the ridges of hills, was just drop it in high and kind of boost my way over the top of it. Now at first, the nose test looked pretty good, so I reversed it up, trying to send it for a little bit of a tougher one. I probably should have just took what I got and carried on, but yeah, I was like, ow. Not bad though, again, I mean the axle sits very close to the front. I believe I have got the bumper on as well that sticks out a little bit more than the stock one, so if it just had the stock one on it, maybe would have been alright there. But it wasn't not the nose test thing that was an issue. Again, it was once I got to the peak of that hill. This axle, again, I mean, yeah, like I said, it's that's just going to be a recurring theme. There's no... I remember it with the, at least on the Derry, I mean, back then when we first got the Derry 3 something or other, the axle was down and that was it. There was like, you didn't even have the option to lift it. At least they added the option to lift it, but I know it kind of defeats the purpose of it. It'd be quite nice if they added an option just to completely delete it. But I've seen in real life, it's funny because the Derry that I'm on about, like, that's in this game with the liftable axle, I've seen videos of that online. That's obviously like an army truck, and even they have removed that axle entirely, and it's towing tanks, which is a very heavy load, and even the army have just said, yeah, sod it, remove the whole thing, because it just gets in the way more than it's needed. And then obviously the next Derry that replaced it just had all 3 rear axles powered. Rolling test wise, actually not bad, as you've seen. It sort of just about held itself. I had to reverse up a little bit just to get it to tip. That axle again on the snow, it just did a little trick there, sort of winch from the back to that tree and just pull myself over that, because in this snow I won't be able to put it in high and just kind of ram my way over it. Climbed up there pretty comfortably, and I suppose that is another one of those situations, because it's solid rock, like that rear is quite planted and that's it. There's no suspension that can kind of, yeah, absorb the weight on the back and then lose grip in a way. Yeah, it's a bit of an odd one to explain, but I think if you drive this truck as well, you'll sort of get what I mean every now and then in those sort of situations. I've just probably not explained it that well. I'm pretty sure now, in the end, I just have to stick it in high, yeah, and just leap over. I mean, I certainly wouldn't be bringing this thing up into mountains like this. After this review, I'm going to be using this rarely. I mean, maybe if I find the right mission, I'll take it out. But yeah, for the most part, it's just going to be sat in my garage gathering dust. I mean, it was a free truck, so better than nothing, I suppose. But it's not particularly useful to any of us. Like, it's not really going to help us in our gameplay. They may as well just have added a golf cart. That'd be better than nothing as well, but wouldn't really do a lot. Yeah, pretty typically slow through here, again with the lack of muds. I think that doesn't really help. And I find as well, I know some people say, oh, the off-roads probably would be better. I personally have found it before, testing, blah blah blah. The chains seem to bite into the terrain that's under the sloppy mud better. And I will say, bearing in mind at the minute, I'm towing a goddamn horse vehicle behind me. He's actually pushing me, giving me a little boost. So again, as I went down that dip and back up, that axle got in the way, but again, Loaf, he's on it. That's why it's always wise to bring a goddamn horse with you. Sort of cut him loose for a minute. Every now and then, a lot of truck, well, not a lot actually, but stuff like the Dolphin, a lot of stuff I drive can pull the Loaf behind it. Doesn't make any difference. Something like this, it would feel me dragging the Loaf behind me. So, yeah, pretty, like, the steering's actually not bad. It's fairly responsive, and it doesn't feel like it understeers a lot, so at least when you apply steering, it's quite quick to introduce it, which I quite like that, because, yeah, when it comes to the understeering, that's like, it can be very tricky to get the line you want, because you might hit a bump and need your steering at the last second, and yeah, stuff that's a bit slow to react, like you just haven't got time. Whereas this thing's pretty good at that. Again, with the nose test as well, it's sort of another one really. As I drop into the quarry, there's no real issues there. Tried to stick it in high now, sort of wing it across here. It got most of the way. But about now, yeah, it just lost too much speed, so once it does, the high just sort of wheel spins then. But at least it's actually making it through here. There's some that really don't like to. It's hesitating there, but you can see I'm bumping over, well, what looks like a pretty fat, meaty rock, but I wouldn't say it looks that massive. But that's what I'm saying though, because there's no suspension travel again, it's got to lift the whole rear of the truck to get over that rock, rather than each individual wheel handling it via suspension. And especially that I've got a trailer on the back as well, it's now got to lift, you know, the front half of the trailer up in the air, so that's why it was sort of struggling. At least it did have the power though, enough guts to it to actually eventually get it over there. And again, up here, not amazing, but I've certainly seen trucks that have struggled a lot more than this. So, now for the quarry test. Get the goddamn horse there, just in case. You'll see why I always take my time to put the goddamn professional there, because going up now, it's looking good, but I run out of... oh, sorry, I put it in high. The reason why is because I thought I was going to try and have to boost it over the first lip of the quarry hill. Yeah, started to tip. Stuck a winch out to the Loaf, and that saved my whole truck rolling and all the concrete slabs falling out. You've got to get your truck level to repack it. It's a bit of a pain in the arse, but it is what it is. I think I'll try it again. It's almost force a habit after driving it tonight. Tried to boost it in high, but yeah, it's not liking that. Not with this much weight on it. So, go back to auto, and it's stopped now, which I was quite surprised. And this is the area where I thought it would have done better. Like, the CT680 did pretty good here. However, put it low range diffs on, let it roll back a little bit to pick up a bit of speed, and it made it through that. I was like, oh, that's pretty good. It even pulled the side rail of the trailer kind of through the top lip of that first quarry hill, and carried on going up here. And yeah, this is one of those areas where I think with that rocker arm suspension, again, no travel, it's just the whole weight of it is slammed on the floor. Now I've also got a trailer with a lot of weight. There's nowhere for the weight to vanish, so it's like, it's just all solidly on the ground and that's it. I don't know in real life if that would help, but certainly it feels like within the mechanics of this game, there's little areas like that where it does. There's my Brigadier. When I did the Brigadier review, I forgot to save this little bit of footage, so I just had to come back quickly and re-get it. That's why that's just abandoned there for now. One day, I'll recover it. I should do, really, because this map, well, it used to. I've not had it for a while, touch wood. Used to be a thieving bastard. It stole... no, God, it stole my Freightliner. Stole my Vorongrad. Remember that video? Rest in peace, Vorongrad. Had him for one day. Oh yeah, I know. Wow, I'm sending the Loaf up to the top. Look at him. It's a goddamn horse. Stick him in high. Not only does he go up this bit, he has to go around the trailer. Goes up this steep bit like a beauty. I am actually sending the Loaf in though, because I left that trailer there the other day when I was doing the Cairn Sentinel review. So I just wanted to get that out of the way before I send this up. And to be fair, looking back, it would have been quite nice to try this in high, but I'm pretty certain I remember the Cat CT680 did this test in high and managed to just fly the trailer up there, which was surprisingly impressive, and so I already had a gut feeling that this was going to do better on this quarry test than you would expect, given its lack of off-road prowess in most other places. That, though, was that liftable axle. It caught that rock. And to be fair, that rock does catch quite a lot of tyres and can be a bit of a pain in the arse, but at least if it catches a tyre that has power going to it, I've got a chance to bite my way over the top of it. Obviously, an unpowered axle is just a dead thing in the way. Almost looked like it wanted to tip there, but not quite. I did use the winches on the tree, so it got up the hill, which is better than quite a lot of trucks, but quite a lot of them, yeah, bridging that gap. As long as it can get close enough where it can reach the tree, I almost consider that a pass in its own right, because, yeah, there's probably less than 10 trucks that can actually properly get up there without any winch assistance or loaf assistance. Caught the trailer there, it flicked me around a bit, but I don't really know what that test, in quotation marks, proves anyway. I just like flying down the hill. Loaf climbs up there, can't resist. He's going off that top diving board again. Oh, he's loving it. So he's getting better. That is Loaf training in action. When I used to jump off there, he'd almost always have some kind of roll and still go back to his wheels, but the more I do it, he's landing like a beauty these days. Yeah, ice test. It was quite nice though. This thing, I was able to get over the ice, but you'll see in a minute I'll kind of drive just straight down it. Unlike, for example, I don't know, some very light trucks anyway, like, will just go across it. This, even though this might possibly be one of those things again where with no suspension travel, it's breaking the ice quite a lot behind it. So if you keep your momentum going, you're alright. But yeah, I would no way be able to go for another run across there. Quick Jeff special. Even with it all-wheel drive on it, managed to Jeff special. Had a pretty good crash here. That's kind of why I wanted to leave that bit in. And she's in. Starts floating, starts peeking its way back up out of the water. So it's kind of a little bit of a giveaway on what's to come. Crossing the river in flooded foothills. And to be honest, I didn't really have particularly high hopes for it crossing here. And I think back when I did the cat review, the CT680, we hadn't got this map yet, so this was sort of one of the newer tests. But yeah, it actually did alright across there. A few little rocks and that to bump over, but for the most part that liftable axle wasn't really too much of a pain there. And yeah, like I said, speed wise, certainly when you're on like flat roads and everything, this thing does motor quite a lot. So did the cat. And again, even like I don't have to take the all-wheel drive off to do the Jeff special, which I need to quite a lot. That post, oh, honestly, I hate that post. Tried to auto load itself onto the trailer. It knew it was dead. Yeah, you can see the rear axle's kind of jiggling as one goes up, the other one has to go down, and blah blah blah. Not a bad little jump. Kind of see the oil slicks from where I've been flying in here all day. Landed it that time though. Not this time. Bam. Bit of an anticlimactic landing. I assume like the exhaust kind of stuck in the floor and just stopped me dead without, yeah, much fanfare about the whole thing. So sending in Dolphin and Loaf. Goddamn professional. I mean, look at him. He knows when to dismount. Did you see the Dolphin was tipping? He might have injured himself, so he jumped out. Well, he's going to have to save everything, isn't he? As usual. I have to say as well, I do like this new engine for the Loaf. When I first drove it, I was like, well, I don't know if there's... Like, it was good, not saying it was a bad thing, but I was kind of like, well, it doesn't feel that much different. But now I can definitely tell when I've not upgraded one of my Loafs to the top engine. Just it's, yeah, a little bit more punchy and snappy getting up to speed now. I like it. It's about time the goddamn professional had himself a new engine. He's earned it. Yeah, I appreciate that's a Dolphin. Not the Cat CT681, but again, he's a goddamn beast. He can do it all. It's going in. That's like, again, my airmail and aviation fuel and all that keeps making the camera do that. Pretty normal on the winch point. The only ones you can see, the two centre ones, like in the middle of the truck, are kind of offset. Again, that might have been trying to kind of pull the exhaust out the out the ground for a second. Surprised the old angry sea worm didn't try and yank it in. But of course, Loaf saves the day as usual, and he's got repairs. But you'll see the back won't lift up because it's suspension, I assume I'm going to fix. Oh, or maybe add a little bit left. I can't see because it shrinks the screen down at the minute. Job's a good one. Bit of engine damage, I don't worry about that. Although again, because the new engine, it obviously has a lot less damage to be taken before it's completely screwed. That can get you a little bit in water. You've got less time between having to fix it. I just quite like this. I was reversing. His trailer got in the way. It's like, trailer? I don't think you know who you're messing with. Don't you dare tell my Loaf where he can and can't reverse. Goes where he goddamn pleases. That's right. No way I'm reattempting that reversing angle. I had the perfect angle the first time. Yeah, well, kind of just seen a little sneak peek. It floats at the front, so it's one of them again where instead of doing like a drowning test because there's no point, it'll just keep floating. I figured I'll go for this one then, see if we can cross over this yeah, sort of river section, or I don't know if it's a river, or I suppose it is, or the sea. And again, quite nice that I can leave the Loaf engine off so you can go into like submarine mode. I don't think this felt quite as comfortable going over here as like that Brigadier the other day. I still like the Voron Grad is definitely very good at doing this. The Voron Grad is probably actually a little bit better than the Brigadier because it's got the mud options and that on the back, but the Brigadier did very well. And this thing, I mean, it still made it. Just, I edited, I think, a minute out there, but whatever, it was like, yeah, it just slower, that was all. So yeah, well, probably a little bit before I just started talking, but the obviously the front's floating until the very end. I finally get all my steering back. Although, as I've said, it does steer even when your whole front of your truck is floating. It still does let you steer a bit, which is quite nice. Now, power-wise, I knew it'd get up here. However, raisable axle or whatever, that's what's kind of stopping me. That sunlight was just at the perfect angle. It was driving me mad when I was trying to look up there. Yeah, I mean, the axle's in the way. That's about all there is to it. I just flicked it back and tried to go again, get a few of the rocks out of the way, get a little bit of a run up, but it's just not enough. Because as soon as that axle starts pressing into the terrain, it's just lifting enough weight off the two rear axles that they now, obviously, they've got power, but they've got no weight on them to grip. It's one of many reasons you get yourself a Loaf. So that's why I take my Loaf for a walk. If I didn't bring my Loaf with me, I'd be screwed now. He gets up there no problem, as usual. Stick a winch on it because he's got plenty of length. That's what she said. I mean, look at him go. He's just a goddamn beast. See my Hummer in the background. Still stuck in a rock. One day it might fly out of there. I'm still waiting. Holds it up there like a beast. That's what I like with the Loaf. It did that horn. The tree started dying. I was like, oh yeah, this is great. It's like a little game in itself. Just go near a tree and honk at it, and it dies. I mean, the Loaf, does it ever stop letting me have a good old time? So yeah, it's a little treat. If I make it this far, I get to fly off here. Oh, this wasn't liking it. Just dribbled off there. Just about enough though. It could start its engine, which is not bad in its own right. It looked about like it wasn't gonna. So this actually made it down there. The Loaf, he was just too embarrassed to join it at that time. Of course, especially with no engine, build them revs, release the handbrake, tap L1, get it into about 5th immediately. He goes through it. A little bit of a dodgy landing though. You see he scoots his way around and he's back. Oh yeah, I was trying to like Jeff Special pass me Loaf and grab him. Just ended up doing like the 720 or something. Going Tony Hawk's. Yeah, it's funny though how the Loaf didn't even tip. Just did a load of spins. Kind of got him that time, but it didn't go too well. I mean, as usual, the Loaf's fine. This thing not so much. See them rear tyres jiggling again. You can see what I mean though with the engine. See, I could have, like the engine, it's over halfway, I think it's got 70 health, so let's say it took 40 damage. 40 damage on what used to be the best engine, it'd still be, like the engine would be white and it'd all be fine. To be fair, it's not popping or spluttering or anything like that, it never stalled or anything, but yeah. It looks worse than it is because it's just got so much less health. It's pretty easy to tip, to be honest. The Loaf certainly handled trucks far bigger than that. So yeah, I mean, in conclusion, I don't know, it's one of them. I mean, maybe get one, add it to your collection for the sakes of it while you're this far into the game, but like I said, we've already kind of got this truck. If you could remove that axle, it's basically a Cat CT 680, and even that in its own right, I don't use a hell of a lot, so yeah, I mean, it might be handy here and there for the odd rare mission where I only need to use roads. Money-wise, is it about 123 grand fully upgraded, which to be fair isn't too bad. Like, particularly that some of these later trucks are getting pretty expensive these days. That's not ruthless for a fully upgraded one anyway. You can sort of see if I go down the list a bit, it's practically half the price, pretty much dead on, of this. To be fair, that Zix is more than twice as useful, so I'd rather spend 240, 250 on that. You can see here, it's 70 grand versus 50 grand stock. And like I said, for the extra 20 grand, they've both got same power to weight and all the rest of it. You can even have this metal detector on the CT680, but you can't on the CT681. So for an extra 20 grand, you add in a liftable axle that now gets in the way of the metal detector and generally gets in the way of what you're up to. So I suppose my advice would be save 20 grand and buy the CT680. To be fair, the description does say there that it's basically more of a highway truck, but it's been given diffs and all-wheel drive to, yeah, like, again, it is better than nothing, I suppose they're not wrong. It probably handles more than the Transstar can, which has just got, I can't remember if that's got diffs or not, but either way it doesn't matter, it's got no all-wheel drive and all the rest of it. But yeah, like I said, that's it, that's the main thing of the truck, the liftable axle, which serves no benefit within the mechanics of this game, and the Cat CT680 is the same truck without that, same power and all the rest of it. So that would, yeah, be my recommendation, to be honest. I think this is just the last little bit of messing around. Is this, yeah, the Cat CT681. It flew pretty nice and true there. Landed it. Oh yeah, that's part of the reason I left this in, other than I like flying trucks off cliffs. It takes the fuel tank gets hit quite a lot. I damaged the suspension there. It won't make any difference to the rear, but obviously it will to the front. It crossed this again though with the Loaf. I moved the Loaf all the way to the back of the sideboard, so I had as much weight over the rear wheels without adding weight to the front. And yeah, made it over there with probably maybe even a little bit smoother than the other time. I came back to do this again and look at it, near enough identical result. Well, almost. The other truck started about now, whereas this thing, the back end started to slip. And it's tipping. And sometimes it does when it lands on its wheels. It's quite planted, because again, there's no suspension to kind of help keep you boating, flopping over to the side. But for whatever, this thing, it did carry itself over. It couldn't quite handle it. So we'll see. I'll have to say, this is a beast. I love this little jump. This might be one of his finest yet. Like, look at him go. Bam! Land it like a beauty. Yeah. I mean, winching it now, this is kind of worst case scenario for the Loaf, because the angle of the winch is like, as I put tension on it, it's lifting my back end off the floor. So I tried scooting over to these rocks to lock it in place, and that's the last thing, is when you get the winch length this short, it doesn't retract as quick as it does at like every other length pretty much. That's why I have to faff around for a bit longer. But we got there in the end. Goddamn horse of a vehicle as usual. But yeah, that's about it for today though. I hope you enjoyed, I hope that helps. Thanks for watching. Get yourself a Loaf. Thanks for my Patreon members, and I'll be back soon.